Hey guys, it's Christine, also known as IvyWinter. Thank you for joining me for another Disney video. I'm sure you've all heard the news about Disney World opening and some of the caveats that come along with this. And I want to talk a little bit about that, but I don't want to just sit here and read out a list of what Disney World is doing. We kind of already know. There are a lot of great Disney news blogs, other great Disney YouTubers who have covered the topic. But what I really want to talk about here is if with those changes, a trip to Disney World in 2020 from this point on is worth it. And I think this is really a huge topic of conversation for people. And it's different depending on who you are. And your answer is probably going to be different. But I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts in this and how it's affecting my planning, and then just kind of what I'm hearing. And of course, I want to know in the comments below, are you planning to go to Disney World after it opens with the restrictions that they're going to be laying down? Are you going to wait? Is it the restrictions and the lack of things that is making you wait, or is it the coronavirus that is making you wait? I'm just really curious about people's thoughts, so you can let me know in the comments below anytime. But I personally have been going back and forth on what I plan to do. I have an annual pass that I bought in December. Good timing, Christine. And I obviously am getting an extended expiration date, as most other annual pass holders are getting. Remember that I am out of state, so this is not a Florida pass holder pass. It is a platinum, fully paid pass. And as it stands right now, my pass will be extended into April of 2021. Now, that is if they are going to consider July the moment that the annual pass kind of turns back on again, if you will. That's kind of the phrase I'm using here. I know that in Hong Kong, when they were doing a testing period of having the parks sort of open, they actually didn't reflect this on the annual pass yet. They actually gave more time to the end expiration date and didn't count that as like officially opening. So I'm curious to see if that's what Disney World does. I keep going back and forth on if I want to hold on to this pass and utilize it towards the end of the year or early 2021, or if it makes sense to call the annual pass holder line and get a refund, which I know that some people are doing. And personally, I don't see myself going to Disney World prior to November. That said, if there are still some of the restrictions in November, would I go? And that is also a question mark as well. So as we know, in terms of restrictions right now, there are still a lot of details that have been left out. Disney has not figured every single bit out. And so they've said what they've said and they know, and I think they're trying to figure everything out before July 11th. But what we do know is there will be no fireworks, there will be no parades, there will be no meet and greets. There is right now limitations on what you can do in terms of restaurants and restaurant reservations. There will be no dining plan as far as I've seen through the end of the year. There will be no Fast Pass Plus. What they want to do instead is take the Fast Pass lines of rides, and it sounds to me like split them into two different standby lines to better socially distance and to better have more people in line, but still be able to follow that 6-foot rule, right? So I'm sure they're gonna find some way to make that logistically work. But yeah, no Fast Pass Plus. And in general, there's gonna be a lot of restrictions from day one. There's only gonna be certain people who are gonna be able to go, pass holders. They're doing a pass holder preview, I did see that. No, I'm not gonna be going for that. But people from out of state are not gonna find it as easy to be able to book resorts. But I think the big thing to think about is, with Disney removing things that are very Disney, right? We go to Disney to meet characters, to see fireworks, to experience those parts of it. Rides are obviously a big part of Disney. Of course, it's a theme park, and that's what drives a lot of it, but it doesn't drive everything. And I guess the question is it worth it for somebody to pay current prices, because it doesn't seem like there's going to be a price change, at least there hasn't been any announced, to go to the parks and feel like maybe they're getting less of an experience. And that's totally fair. It is less of an experience. On top of that, they are going to be encouraging mask usage. I didn't see anything about them necessarily removing anyone who isn't wearing a mask, but they definitely really want you to, they want people social distancing even in the parks themselves. And to do that, they're going to be cutting some capacity. So that experience in and of itself doesn't seem magical for a lot of people. So it's really been interesting to think about whether it's worth it or not. I think in my mind, I see it as a couple of different camps. So the guests that have never been to Disney or haven't been in years who planned a trip for 2020, my personal opinion, not worth it. Because you haven't really had the full Disney experience, and I don't know why you'd want to go now and only get a part of that Disney experience and have it be very altered and not truly what it could be. If you're going to spend all that money on a vacation that you have never taken before, or you haven't done this in a long time, you're all pumped up and you're really excited about it, I don't think that you're going to get the best experience with how things are going to be for the next who knows how many months. It is indefinite. They don't know when they're actually going to change restrictions. That is my honest opinion. I just don't think that you should be going in 2020 if this is a first trip, if this is like the first trip in 15 years, any of that. I think you should hold off and wait for things to return more normal. Then I feel like there is a second group, and I am in that group of people who go regularly, who are not locals. So people who live outside of the state of Florida, but maybe have an annual pass, maybe don't. Maybe you go once a year, maybe you go 3 times a year, maybe you go once every other 2 years. It's still pretty regularly to me. And I think that is very middle ground for a lot of people, because you've had a lot of the Disney experience before, right? So I think you could justify, well, I know what Disney's like normally. I've had the experience many, many times. I just love Disney enough that I feel okay going and dealing with the restrictions, and it won't be too hard for me to still have a good time. And then there's also people like me who are like, well, I don't know if I want to get on a plane and deal with being at an airport and then deal with being at another airport, and just everything, all the steps to get to the parks itself could be a risk right now with travel, right? So I'm not, for me, I'm that other 50% that I think is like, it's not that I couldn't deal with restrictions, but I would rather wait. I feel like that is a very personal decision, and by all means, if you want to go, just be safe about it. And then I think that there's this last camp of the locals, and I think locals are going to be the ones who might be more willing to go, because you don't have to pay for flights and worry about all of that. You don't have to worry about hotels and what hotels are going to be open or not open. If you're local enough to drive and be able to just go for the day, I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the first group of people who are going come from. It's going to be locals. It's going to be cast members not working on those days that might want to go and kind of check it out and see what's happening before they start working again. I think it's just easier to justify when it's so close to you, and you don't have to jump through other hoops and worry about anything else in terms of travel, especially with everything else that's going on. I think that if you are a guest who is basically the less amount of money you have to spend to get to Disney World and experience it, the more likely I think it is that you'll want to go during 2020, and maybe it will make sense because you're not putting all this money into a trip to then go and feel like you're missing out on really quintessential experiences. And if you're local and you go a lot, if you're someone who's like, I go on the weekends, not having meet and greets might not mean much to you because you're not there for that. So I think it's worth it. I mean, it is if you feel like you are confident enough to go, and if you feel like you've missed it, I by all means. I mean, the way I see it is somebody has to go in July, right, and kind of see how everything kind of pans out. But I think that the biggest contributor to that worth really is the money, right? So the least amount of money that it costs you to go there and have an experience and have a day there, the less you might feel kind of ripped off of not having all of these things that you would normally expect on your vacation, because maybe they just don't matter to you as much. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on if it's really worth it or not. Again, I don't know if I'm gonna go anytime sooner than November. That would be the earliest. It's my birthday in November, so I'm considering a trip then, depending on what happens. I have no idea, and you know, I definitely feel confident in going in 2021. Definitely want to go in 2021 because of the 50th anniversary. But again, I feel like for me, it's a lot of like, let's wait and see. But I'm really curious again, are you gonna go, are you booked for July, August, September, next year? Whatever you're thinking is, let me know in the comments below. I know this is on a lot of people's minds. If you like this video, then like it. If you like me, you should subscribe. I make Disney videos every single week. I am, I guess, unique in the way that I am out of state, so I will not be one of those Disney vloggers that is there day one. And if you want that content, I can definitely point you to quite a few who I know will be making that content. But you know, I do the best that I can from a distance. So I appreciate everybody who continues to watch. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great rest of the day. Bye.